Olena had always believed her life was calm and predictable. Working at the library was her sanctuary. The soft smell of old books, the rustle of pages, the quiet, all of it gave her a sense of control, a sense of safety. She loved these small, simple pleasures. A sip of coffee between the shelves, discovering an old postcard tucked in the pages of a book, evening walks along streets where lamplight shimmered in puddles after a rain. She often thought of life as something measured, something she could anticipate. Until that day, the rain came suddenly, like a bucket poured from the sky, drenching everything in minutes. Olena dashed through the streets, looking for shelter, and found a small café tucked into the corner. Inside, the smell of fresh coffee mingled with the faint scent of old books, and a warmth settled over her. Wooden tables, comfortable chairs, old photographs of the city lining the walls, everything made the place feel cozy, almost magical. Shadows of raindrops danced across the floor as light filtered in from the window. And then she saw him. A man, sitting alone at a table, entirely absorbed in a small notebook. His eyes, dark and deep, held a quiet intensity that immediately caught her attention. He didn't notice the other patrons, the sound of cups clinking, or the rain outside. But when their eyes met, he smiled. And that smile, gentle, effortless, alive, sent a shiver down her spine and made her heart beat faster. She hesitated, then ordered her coffee. After a moment, she approached the table next to him. "May I?" she asked, trying to sound confident, though her palms were damp. "Of course," he said, and his voice, calm and deep, sent a curious warmth through her chest. They started talking about ordinary things. The weather, the coffee, the old books lining the shelves. Slowly, their conversation deepened. Favorite writers, childhood dreams, music that felt like it spoke to the soul. Every word he spoke seemed to awaken something inside her, something she hadn't realized was dormant. She felt drawn to him in a way she hadn't felt for anyone before. By the time they left the café, the rain had stopped, but the warmth, the electricity, the quiet excitement of having met someone extraordinary lingered inside her. She felt a curious mix of peace and anticipation, as if life itself had shifted slightly, tilting towards something unknown but irresistible. In the days that followed, Olena found her thoughts drifting toward him constantly. She noticed small details she had never paid attention to before, the way light fell across the cobblestones on her walk to work, the gentle hum of the city at night, the way a smile could suddenly appear for no reason at all. Everything seemed richer, sharper, more alive. And then she saw him again. Perhaps by chance, perhaps fate, it didn't matter. He was sitting at the same table, absorbed in his notebook, and when he looked up and met her gaze, her knees almost buckled. "Hi," she said, forcing herself to sound casual. "Hi," he replied, the same easy smile that had haunted her dreams now present in reality. Hours passed like minutes as they talked about everything, books, films, music, dreams, fears, and silly little jokes that made them both laugh until their sides ached. Olena realized she could be completely herself with him. She didn't need to hide her anxieties, her doubts, her moments of hesitation. For the first time, she felt truly seen. One evening, walking through the park after a light rain, they stopped by the fountain. The water mirrored the lamplight, sparkling across their faces, reflecting their laughter in tiny ripples. Mykhailo took her hand in his. "You know," he said softly, "I really like you." Her heart seemed to pause, then pound faster. "Than she thought possible, and I like you," she whispered, daring to speak the truth that had been quietly growing inside her. Their feelings grew slowly but surely, like a river gaining strength as it moves toward the sea. They shared stories. Mykhailo spoke of his childhood by the seaside, of mistakes, of victories, of fears no one else had seen. Olena shared hers. Moments of loneliness, the books that had saved her from sadness, small joys of life that seemed invisible to the world. Soon, their meetings became a ritual. Morning coffee at the library, evening walks, long conversations about the stars above, counting them in silence while holding hands. Every touch, every glance was a confirmation, they were no longer alone. Something real, something profound had formed between them. Then life intruded. One evening, Mykhailo received an unexpected job offer abroad, a prestigious company, an important project, the kind of career move that comes once in a lifetime. He knew the opportunity was extraordinary, yet the thought of leaving Olena made his heart ache in a way he hadn't anticipated. Olena felt a sudden hollow ache inside her chest. "Mykhailo, are you serious?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes, I can't refuse it," he admitted, looking away, "but I don't want to lose you." They argued. Harsh words slipped from both of them, words they would later regret. "You don't understand me," she said. "You don't feel anything," he shouted. Yet beneath it all, the love they had built remained, fragile but unwavering. For a time, they stopped seeing each other. Olena stayed in the quiet of her apartment, clutching the memory of him like a lifeline. Mykhailo traveled across cities, countries even, but each night before sleep, he thought of her. Her smile, the scent of her hair, the sound of her laughter. The separation became their trial. They understood that love wasn't just about the joyous moments, but about surviving the pain, the fear, the uncertainty. True love, they realized, is tested when the heart is broken, and the mind demands retreat. Weeks later, Mykhailo returned. Each step he took through the streets of the city was hesitant, but his heart was certain, he needed to find her. He went to the place they had shared the most time, the small corner café. Olena was there, in her usual seat, immersed in a book. She hadn't expected to see him that evening. When he entered, her heart raced. "Olena," he said, his voice trembling. She rose silently. They faced each other, unsure who would speak first. Slowly, he extended his hand, and she took it without hesitation. "I can't live without you," he whispered. "Neither can I," she replied. From that moment, their time together grew richer. They walked the streets, shared evening picnics in the park, browsed bookstores, celebrated small joys. Every day became a tapestry of smiles, shared jokes, and quiet evenings spent in each other's presence. One winter evening, sitting by the fireplace, Mykhailo spoke quietly. "You know, I never imagined life could be this simple and yet so full." "We make it this way," Olena answered, holding his hand. Living together, they learned the beauty of ordinary life. Mykhailo made morning coffee, occasionally mismeasuring the sugar, but Olena's laughter made each mistake delightful. They walked in the park, even on cold days, Olena clutching a book, Mykhailo a notebook. Sometimes they simply sat on a bench, observing people, inventing stories, laughing until tears came. In the evenings, they read aloud to each other, playing different characters, adding their own jokes and commentary. Olena painted small pictures for Mykhailo. He left her notes with gentle words, "You make the world better." Celebrating little victories, birthdays of friends and family, became shared traditions. They learned not only to love, but to notice, support, and cherish the details that made life special. Step by step, Olena and Mykhailo wrote their story, where love was more than a feeling. It became a daily choice. The choice to stay together, to rejoice together, to build their small happiness in a vast, unpredictable world. Days turned into weeks, and Olena and Mykhailo settled into a rhythm that felt both comforting and exciting. The city outside continued its hurried pace, but inside their small world, time seemed slower, more deliberate. Each morning, the smell of brewing coffee became a gentle alarm, nudging them into the day with quiet warmth. Mykhailo experimented with latte art, laughing when hearts and stars turned into abstract shapes. Olena teased him mercilessly, but secretly, she loved seeing him try. Evenings became their sacred time. They would prepare dinner together, sometimes clumsily bumping into each other in the small kitchen. Olena would sprinkle herbs on a dish, Mykhailo would taste and exaggerate how perfect it was, making her laugh. They learned each other's habits, small quirks, the little ways they expressed affection without words. A brush of a hand, a shared glance, the way Mykhailo hummed while doing the dishes, the way Olena would trace patterns on his notebook cover absent-mindedly, these moments became the invisible threads that wove their life together. One rainy afternoon, they found themselves wandering through an old market, the cobblestones slick with water. Stalls overflowed with colors, textiles, fruits, handmade trinkets. Olena paused at a stall of vintage postcards, flipping through them slowly, almost reverently. Mykhailo watched her, captivated by how she found beauty in small things, noticing details others might overlook. "Do you ever think about how many lives these postcards have passed through?" he asked quietly. She smiled, her eyes distant. "All those stories, all those hands, it makes me feel like time is less lonely, somehow." He reached for her hand, squeezing it. "And now, we add our story to it." They shared lazy Sundays in bookstores, exploring shelves, reading aloud to each other passages that moved them. Sometimes they would sit cross-legged on the floor, books spilling around them, and just watch the sunlight stream through the tall windows. Mykhailo would read a line, then pause, and Olena would finish it without looking, perfectly in sync. Their laughter echoed softly between the stacks, blending with the faint scent of old pages and dust. One evening, they ventured to the riverbank, where the city lights shimmered on the water like scattered gems. Mykhailo pulled a small thermos of tea from his bag, and they sat silently on a bench, sipping, watching the reflections ripple. Olena rested her head on his shoulder, and he tightened his arm around her. In the quiet, they realized how much they had changed, how deeply intertwined their lives had become. It wasn't just love anymore, it was comfort, trust, a sense of belonging. The seasons shifted, bringing snow, and with it, a different kind of magic. They built snowmen in the park, laughing uncontrollably when the sculptures inevitably collapsed. Olena left small notes in pockets for Mykhailo to find, tiny reminders: you make ordinary days extraordinary, or, don't forget to smile today. And he reciprocated with doodles, sketches of the two of them, little moments frozen on paper. Through it all, they experienced challenges too, work pressures, minor disagreements, moments of insecurity. But every obstacle was met together, their bond strengthened by their willingness to communicate, forgive, and support each other. Arguments ended with quiet reconciliations, gentle apologies, and warm embraces that reminded them why they were together. Late at night, lying in bed, Olena would listen to Mykhailo's breathing and think of how life had unexpectedly changed. She recalled the first time they had met, the café, the rain, the spark that had started everything. She realized that love wasn't just about grand gestures or intense emotions, it was also in the mundane, the routine, the simple acts of being present. And with Mykhailo, every ordinary moment felt extraordinary. Their story continued, page by page, day by day. Every morning, every evening, every shared cup of coffee or whispered joke became a part of a narrative that was uniquely theirs. They learned that happiness wasn't something to chase. It was something to cultivate in the small moments, in the quiet connections, in the choice to be together even when life was complicated. One night, as they sat by the window watching the city's lights flicker in the rain, Mykhailo turned to her. "Do you realize how far we've come?" Olena nodded, leaning into him. "Yes, and I know that no matter what happens, we'll keep going, together." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Together," he echoed, and in that simple word, everything was said. Spring arrived, bringing with it fresh scents and bright colors. Olena and Mykhailo discovered a small garden hidden between buildings, where wildflowers grew untamed. They spent hours there, wandering along narrow paths, touching petals, listening to birdsong. Olena laughed as Mykhailo knelt to smell a particularly vibrant flower, pretending it was a rare treasure he had discovered. "Do you think flowers feel lonely when no one notices them?" she asked quietly. "Maybe," he said, smiling. "But I think they're happiest when someone stops to see them. Like now." She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. In that moment, the garden didn't just exist for them, it was theirs, a secret world of colors and scents that mirrored their growing love. They began cooking together more often. Simple meals turned into adventures. Mykhailo tried making homemade pasta, flour covering his hair and clothes, and Olena couldn't stop laughing at his clumsy attempts. She guided him gently, savoring each shared mistake. In return, he found little ways to surprise her. A perfectly brewed cup of tea left on her desk, a handwritten note tucked inside her book, a tiny bouquet of wildflowers from the market. Lazy weekends became sacred. They explored neighborhoods on bicycles, discovering hidden cafes, bookshops, and quiet courtyards. Sometimes they didn't speak at all, content simply to pedal side by side, sharing smiles, glances, and the subtle thrill of being together without words. Evenings brought quiet rituals. Mykhailo read poetry aloud while Olena sketched, their hands occasionally brushing over the papers and pens scattered across the table. Sometimes, the words on the page led to conversations about life, dreams, fears, the unspoken parts of themselves they only revealed to each other. They celebrated small victories in life, like finishing a challenging project at work or mastering a new recipe. These moments became opportunities to laugh, tease, and hold each other a little longer. Every gesture, no matter how minor, was a thread strengthening the fabric of their shared life. Occasionally, challenges arose, a sudden disagreement, a misunderstanding, or a busy week that left one of them exhausted. Yet even in these moments, they learned patience and compromise. Arguments ended with gentle apologies, warm embraces, and quiet reassurances, reminding each other that the love between them was stronger than any fleeting frustration. One afternoon, Mykhailo brought Olena to a small hill overlooking the city. The sun was low, casting golden light over rooftops and streets. He handed her a notebook, and inside were sketches of places they had visited together, the cafe where they first met, the fountain in the park, the garden hidden between buildings. On each page, a tiny note, "Remember this day," or, "We were here together." Olena smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "You made this for us." "For us," he confirmed. "So we never forget the little moments." And in that moment, Olena realized that life's greatest beauty was not in grand gestures or extraordinary events, but in the ordinary, shared experiences that became extraordinary simply because they were together. Nights were their time for reflection. Lying side by side, listening to the faint hum of the city, they spoke of hopes, fears, and dreams. Sometimes Olena would close her eyes, picturing their life together years from now, feeling certain that, no matter what came, they would face it hand in hand. Mykhailo, watching her, silently vowed the same. As the seasons changed, so did their routine, but their love remained a constant thread. Spring became summer, and they spent long afternoons by the river, reading, talking, or simply lying on the grass, watching clouds drift lazily across the sky. The world outside moved quickly, but in their shared moments, time slowed, each second savored like a rare gift. They discovered the joy in small traditions. A Wednesday night walk to the same bakery for fresh pastries, a Saturday morning coffee ritual, a shared playlist of songs that reminded them of each other. Even mundane errands became playful adventures. Grocery shopping turned into a game of who could pick the strangest fruit, a trip to the laundromat into an opportunity to dance in the folding area. Olena often thought about the day they met, the cafe, the rain, and how a single, seemingly ordinary moment had changed her life entirely. She knew that love wasn't always dramatic or overwhelming. Sometimes it was quiet, persistent, and subtle, woven through laughter, gentle touches, and shared silence. And with Mykhailo, every moment, no matter how small, felt profound. Summer stretched on, warm and golden, and Olena and Mykhailo found joy in each long, lazy day. They spent mornings at the riverside, dipping their feet into the cool water, letting the gentle current tickle their toes. Mykhailo brought a small sketchbook, and Olena would carefully draw the reflections of sunlight on the water, while he captured their shadows and laughter with pencil lines. Sometimes they didn't speak at all, content to feel the quiet presence of the other. One particularly hot afternoon, they ventured into the countryside. Fields of tall grass swayed in the wind, and the scent of wildflowers filled the air. Mykhailo dared Olena to run barefoot through the fields, laughing as she did, feeling the sun on her skin and the soft grass under her feet. He chased her in return, and soon both were breathless with laughter, the kind that came from pure, unguarded joy. They found a small village market along the way, colorful and bustling. Vendors offered fresh berries, handmade baskets, and pastries that smelled irresistible. They sampled everything, teasing each other over who picked the sweetest fruit or who ate the most chocolate. At a quiet corner of the market, Mykhailo bought a tiny music box and handed it to Olena. She wound it carefully, and the soft melody seemed to echo the rhythm of their days together. Evenings brought new traditions. They discovered a rooftop cafe that overlooked the city at sunset. Every week, they returned, sipping tea, sharing small desserts, and watching the sky change colors. They spoke of their hopes, their dreams for the future, and of the quiet beauty of ordinary moments. Often, they stayed past dark, counting stars while wrapped in blankets, letting the city hum beneath them. Autumn arrived, and the city was painted in shades of amber and gold. They collected leaves on long walks, pressing the most beautiful ones into their notebooks. Mykhailo sketched the shapes of the leaves while Olena wrote little notes about their day. The crisp air, the scent of fallen leaves, the warmth of their scarves, and the quiet laughter shared on empty streets became memories they treasured deeply. One evening, after a gentle rain, Mykhailo surprised Olena with a small picnic in the park. They sat on a blanket under a tree, drinking hot chocolate, watching the last raindrops drip from branches. Olena leaned against him, feeling a quiet contentment she had never known before. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think happiness was something far away, something I had to chase." He smiled, brushing a leaf from her hair. "I think it's been here all